Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here, doing a little yay or nay episode for E3 2016. This episode I'm going to be doing The Surge. It is one of two titles coming out this year, or coming out next year at least, that a lot of people are relating to Dark Souls. Now, for me personally, never had interest in Dark Souls. I always liked the idea that it's super hard and it's almost impossible to beat on tougher difficulties and easy to screw up and stuff. Always liked that concept, but it just never really drew me in. And looking at the Surge, I kind of feel the exact same way. It has some cool mechanics to it. It has some stuff because I've certainly seen a lot of Dark Souls gameplay, so it has some elements of that, but it also has new elements. And I have a ton of notes on this. I rewatched actually the developer interview that I saw. I wanted to make sure I got down everything that I got out of that interview to really talk about everything they mentioned and just how it looks and stuff like that. So it has some high points, has some low points for me, and I decided I'll kind of wait until the end because I'm kind of just doing this series on the fly. I didn't even expect to do this, but I'm going to wait till the end to let you guys know what I like, or my ultimate decision, yay or nay for me. But of course, want to know what you guys think about it. If you haven't checked it out yet, all my stuff I saw from IGN. Because they were the ones doing like a 24-hour sort of live stream deal, so I was like, alright, well that's who I'm watching. So that's the only reason all my things are from IGN, but you can find whatever trailers or interviews you want. But that's where I got my info if you check out the IGN developer gameplay showcase interview thing. I forgot what they call them. But the Surge, it looks cool. I like the idea of the characters all using construction equipment. They all have exoskeletons and stuff like that. So we have characters using chainsaws and forklift forks, because that's what they actually are. And I thought that was kind of cool. It was interesting to see. And we have, our main character who apparently, because they talked a little bit about this story, he kind of wakes up and then everyone around him is suddenly a bad guy. Everyone's either gone crazy because they all look human, they all still look normal, but it seems like they just all kind of went nuts and now he's just being attacked by people. So we don't really know. Based on the interview, I have no idea where in the story that is, but that's kind of the vague story that they gave us. Basically, he wakes up and everyone's kind of trying to kill him and things are really crazy and weird. So he's going through, he's fighting people, he's also fighting actual robots throughout the demo that I saw as well. And it looked kind of cool. I thought it was interesting. You get to craft weapons as well as certain visuals, which I thought was really cool. So they have, excuse me, they have this mechanic throughout the game. I sound totally different now. But they have this mechanic through the game where you can actually amputate people in certain parts of their body. So there are 6 points of, amputation. So they have the head where you can decapitate people, which is in the demo that I saw, which was a really cool thing. You have to kind of charge up your meter, and I believe it's just called energy. Yeah, so it's just energy. So you fill up the meter, and that allows you to do basically an amputation move. And so it went in slow motion, and he kicked him in the stomach like a Spartan or something, and then he did a spin and chopped the guy's head off. And it is bloody. It's not super bloody. When they actually fight, there's kind of no blood. But when he did the finishing move, that's when blood first shows up, and that's probably 2 minutes into the gameplay. And I was like, oh, there's a lot of blood in this game. He decapitated a guy, because it looks like, oh, you just hit people and that's it. And then he pulled out a decapitation, and it was like, oh, this went from teen to mature just like that. So there's definitely blood in the game and mature concepts, because you wouldn't think that if you first saw it. It's like, oh, it could easily be teen because it's they're just hitting each other, but it's definitely mature. They're decapitations. But they have the head, they have the torso, so I guess you can just completely chop them in half. They have, there's one, it looked like it was right at the feet, so I would assume, I don't know, faster shoes, I guess. You're chopping people's feet off. And then, so it's shoulders, shoes, shoulders, feet, head, torso, and then, right at the elbow as well. So they have multiple points of amputation that you can do, and if you do those finishing moves, you actually get to take the parts from those different body parts, and you can utilize them later on in the gameplay, and you can craft them for yourself, give you different upgrades here, different upgrades there. And something that I thought was really cool, very little minor touch for gameplay, but it looked really sweet, or it sounded really cool when he mentioned it, is that they have a HUD in the game. So they have health, energy, which to do the amputation moves and stuff, and they also have stamina. But they mentioned those 3 things are basically there just so you know that they are. If you wanted to get rid of the health, the visual on the HUD, you could technically get rid of that and then put in another special for yourself. And the one he specifically said was like, oh, you could get rid of the HUD. That way you don't need to know what your health is if you want to play that way, and then just replace that with another power up so you can like run faster, or your attack is stronger. So even the visuals, at least those three elements, or specifically the health, I'm assuming all three of the meters, you could technically take out and then just replace them with other upgrades if you wanted to. So I was like, that's actually very cool. It's like technically not for the characters, for us to see the health and energy, but you're still able to get rid of that stuff, and it's a part of the actual gameplay. So that's a very small little thing, but I was like, that's actually very awesome. You can almost control the HUD in a sense, and then just take an element out and then put more passive upgrades for yourself in the game. So that I thought was very cool. Like I mentioned, the finishing moves are based on energy. Energy can somewhat be customized. So the way they have it is sometimes energy can be used, and this is an example he gave. If you wanted to, you can make it where you use energy, and as you attack enemies, it gives you more health. And that's kind of a little way to customize it. And I thought that was cool too. So it's not just, oh, you use it simply to do like the power moves. You can use it for other little stuff as well. So I thought that was kind of cool. It has a Metroidvania style of gameplay where it's like, oh, you went through the game, you go through this level, but you don't have this upgrade or even this item in general. So you go through the game a couple more hours, you get this item, it's like, oh, I remember this, and then you can backtrack, which I don't know if that means it's open world. He didn't specifically say, oh, it's open world or something like that, but I would assume it is, because you can just go back to certain locations and then you unlock stuff. So that's a cool little concept as well. Metroidvania style is always pretty fun, and it makes it a little bit more. Sometimes it can be like really tedious to do that much backtracking. So it really depends on how they do it, and also how big the place is, if there's fast travel, if it truly is open world, stuff like that. So that's something that they would really have to work out to make it a little bit more entertaining for us to go 3 hours extra, over there, and then how long, it probably wouldn't take the 3 hours to get back, because that would be story elements and whatnot. But how much time would it take for me to go all the way back to get like a little somewhat cool health upgrade or something really minor. So lots of elements there that they would kind of have to work on, as far as how fast it takes to backtrack, how big, like I said, if it truly is open world, which I assume it is, based on what he said with being able to go back. How big is it? How long does it take? Can we just fast travel to the different little sections and stuff like that? So we'll kind of have to wait and see how all that stuff plays out. But it looks kind of cool. I like the idea of it. We got to see a boss fight during the interview that I saw, which was actually very interesting, and that was one of my favorite components of everything they showed. The boss that he fought was like this giant robot. Kind of made me think of Metal Gear. It literally looked like Metal Gear Rex to me when I first saw it. It's just kind of this shape of it and how it stands and stuff. But it has like, it's this giant robot, so he can't really do much to damage it. He's hitting like the wheels and the legs, and it's doing like no damage pretty much. But it has another meter underneath the health, and it's the threat analysis for this robot. And so as it starts off, the meter's empty. And this robot's like, oh, this is nothing. Just step on it, swing around, do some stupid little kicks. But as the threat analysis meter kicks up, once it filled, it was like, okay, that forced the boss to switch tactics. And it's kind of similar to a lot of games where it's like, okay, you do this much damage, and then it makes the enemy switch. But in this, you know what you have to do in order to, make that happen. And seemingly it only shows up with bosses, because they had human characters as well as like mini bosses, like little, much smaller robots compared to the boss. So none of them had the threat analysis thing. They were just enemies to fight. But it seems like that's a really cool mechanic to have for boss battles, where you have to fill up this meter, and that's how you know that they're going to change tactics. And ultimately, like I said, it's kind of the same thing, but I guess the fact that the way they do it, where it's like the reason they change tactics, it's not just, oh, you get them to have health, they change tactics. It's like, okay, this robot realizes, based on the lore of the universe, it's learning, and it's like, this thing is destroying me, this is a serious threat, I need to change tactics to take it out. So even though it's technically similar, it's the way they make it work, where it's actually within the lore of the world. Like, that's why it changed tactics. It's not just, you got 100 points of damage on it, now it's switching to the second set of the boss fight. So thought that was really cool. And also the way they did it, because clearly it'll change. I would assume it's going to change between bosses. But for the one that they had, it changed tactics to missiles that would shoot out the top, and they were homing missiles. But because they were homing missiles, and this was also like an older, it was already like a destroy robot. Like it tried to do an attack when he first shows up. It's so old, the thing just blew up. Like the main weapon just exploded, and it was like, okay, second, primary weapon's not, malfunctioning. It just blew up and instantly caught fire. And he didn't even attack it. It was trying to attack him, and it was just too old to do it. So I would assume with newer robots it would be different, and sometimes they might be smarter, they might not be able to move as fast, sometimes they might move faster. But for this one, he was able to use the homing missiles against it, and it was kind of like a TV show where they used the homing missiles on the enemy. So all he had to do was wait for it would jump away from him and then launch missiles, and he would do like a dash attack, and he would basically get underneath it, and the missiles would follow him, and when they would shoot up, they basically come straight back down because it's targeting him. So I don't know if they'll add that element where maybe some of the newer robots are smart enough to not do that. It's like they shoot up and it's like, oh, it's under me, I can't shoot these missiles anymore. Maybe that'll cause it to switch tactics as well. We'll see some robots that aren't so old that they literally blow up when they try to use their primary weapons. So I could imagine that taking on a lot of different forms based on the robots that we get to see. But I thought that was really cool. You force it to use new tactics, and then because you can't damage it at all, you have to make it damage itself. It was almost like The Incredibles a little bit, if you've seen that, which I don't know how you haven't. But I like that idea. That was really cool. It damaged it, and then that would knock it down, and then he'd be able to get to the weak points that were too high for him to reach before. So I like that idea. I thought it was very cool how they used that in the boss fight for sure. And I'm pretty sure that's everything I saw. At least that's everything I wrote down. And there's some stuff I may have missed. You can craft weapons. Aside from just crafting or getting like the new components, you actually craft specific weapons. So it's not just like, oh, you run faster or your defense is higher. You actually get new weapons. I would assume if someone comes at you with a bunch of chainsaws, you chop an arm off, you now have that chainsaw that you can add to your exosuit and little stuff like that. So very cool. It seems interesting, and the story seems okay. But for me, when I look at the gameplay, like it has a lot of great ideas, and like just talking about it, it actually gets me more excited than when I was looking at it now. And I'm kind of changing. Initially, I was like, I don't think, I still kind of don't think I'm gonna get this game, but I am curious to see what they're gonna do with it. For me, I'm very in the middle. It's like I just don't see myself getting it, but I don't want to say nay because it's not like this kind of sucks to me at all. I think it has great concepts. I love this stuff with the boss fight. Just the idea of it, and like I'm still really curious. I'm always a really big story person, no matter the game. I love to know what the story is, and so it's really vague right now. It seems like get from here to here, and that's really it. Just like Dark Souls, I really don't know the story of that, but I know it has a technically it has an ending for 1 and 2, but I really just don't know. So it's one of those things where it's like, depending on what the story is, I might be more interested to pick it up if they're like, here's the main villain and here's some other characters that the main character knows. Little stuff like that, I might be more excited for the game. But right now, very in the middle. Love the concepts, but just watching the gameplay, it's like, it seems okay. And it's also a demo, but sometimes some demos, some 5-minute demos like just get you in automatically. And other 5-minute demos, they just don't do it. And from what I've seen so far, it just didn't do it for me. But I'm still very in the middle. I don't want to say I'm never going to get this. But right now, if I had to, I would say I'm not going to end up getting this game. But I'm definitely in the middle of it. It's like I said, great concepts. I think it looks really cool. It's far more vibrant than Dark Souls. But, just looking at it, it's like, it seems okay. Fought a couple enemies, seemed fairly basic. Did some dash attacks, hit them with the axe. The power moves, or the decapitation and chopping off the arms and stuff, looked really cool, and the mechanic for the boss was cool. But it just all felt a little slow, and not even like Dark Souls slow. It was like it seems like it should be much faster than Dark Souls, and it is faster, but it seems like it's just not fast enough based on them having like exosuits and stuff like that. It still looks really slow compared to what you think it would look like. It's like they've got exosuits and all this crazy tech. And it's like he still just kind of does a little dash attack and, he has like one axe, at least in the demo. And it's like, it still just doesn't look fast enough and like entertaining enough from what I saw. And it was a very intentional demo. Like he fought like 3 normal humans, one sub boss, and then you fought the main boss. There were like 5 specific enemies, and everything else was like exploration. There may have been like 6 enemies total. So it was a very clear direction for what they had for that demo. So that's always another part of it. It's always like sometimes you can tell it's like if I saw something else, might get me a lot more. But for now, I'm kind of like straight in the middle. I love the concepts, but even all of the concepts and everything together, just looking at it, it's like it's on paper, and then in person, it's just like it just all those concepts, even though they're technically there, you can say them all at once, but you don't see them all at once in the demo. So it's like as you go through, it's just like meh, So I'm very in the middle on this one. I'm curious to see where they're going. I'm definitely not just throwing this away, but at this point, I could definitely say I don't think I'm gonna get it. I won't say I'm never gonna get it for sure, but at this point, I don't think I am. But of course, the reason I'm doing this is because I would love to know what you guys thought about it. So based on what you've seen, what you've heard, the comparison to Dark Souls, whether you want to compare it or not, of course, it's up to you. I would love to know what you guys think, so please comment below. Let me know, yay or nay, or if you're kind of in the middle of me, like with me, and just trying to see where they take things. But definitely want to know what you guys think, so please comment below and let me know. And of course, thanks for watching.